Climate activists from the South African Food Sovereignty Campaign, the Climate Justice Charter Movement and the Orange Mask Campaign recently gathered across the country to call for an end to hunger, thirst, pollution and the climate harm. Now, the Climate Justice Charter was handed over to Parliament outlining the group's demands. Now, the list addresses, among other things, issues of water inequality as well as an end to hunger and pollution. They've given Parliament 1 year to deliberate and adopt the Climate Justice Charter. Joining me now via Zoom is Dr. Vishwas Satgar, and he joins us via Zoom here in Johannesburg. Doc, a very good afternoon to you. Firstly, you heard the President table the country's economic recovery plan. Do you feel that issues to do with climate change there were adequately addressed, or did the President fall short?
The President fell very, very short, actually, and it's quite shocking that this is the kind of thinking coming out of the government. Our position is guided by climate science and the top climate scientists in the country, including at my university. We are heating at twice the global average. We face a 3 °C overshoot within this decade in southern Africa and particularly our country. This is going to have catastrophic consequences. The state president's plan that was announced, firstly, he calls for more oil and gas exploration and extraction, and he wants to kind of fast-track that process. He also calls for speeding up licenses for water and other kinds of resources that are at the heart of the minerals energy complex, and that is impacting negatively, and has for decades, on communities and on workers' lives in terms of health issues. I mean, the plan also is not thinking in terms of the kind of recovery we need that addresses multiple crises, okay? We went into COVID-19 with a crashing economy. It crashed even more. The climate crisis is worsening. We didn't learn lessons from the drought, etc. So in a sense, it's just not adding up.
Yeah. Doc, it's a difficult balancing act. The President has to balance all the competing interests whilst at the same time trying to restart this economy. If, for example, we talk about issues to do with mining, the environmental impact is that key among those, the issue of water. It gets polluted and communities do not have clean water to use. How do you suggest that government balances that, knowing fully well that the mining industry uses water heavily and it pollutes that particular water, which is, by the way, a human right that is enshrined in the Constitution for all South Africans to have access to clean drinking water?
The mining industry in South Africa owes South Africa an ecological debt. For over 150 years, it has had devastating consequences on people and non-human nature. Water is a big part of that issue. Acid mine drainage, and this has been reported, it's been scientifically studied. It's a major challenge. Most of our water sources and our water catchment areas are highly compromised from this toxicity as well. We've got parts of South Africa linked to mining where people cannot open a tap and have clean, safe drinking water. That's one part of it. I mean, the other part of it is, if you look at Mpumalanga, we have some of the most arable land in the country in Mpumalanga. And this government is making a big push to further more mining in that province. It's really, really going to compromise our capacity to produce food. Mining also in South Africa, if you look at coal mining particularly, I mean, there are mine workers that are trapped in this industry, and we've got to be very sensitive, and this is where climate justice is very, very important. I mean, for us, there has to be a transition, and we have to think about how this transition happens. And this is why we put a climate justice charter forward. Now, in addition, to that, which is very crucial because this is what's on the immediate agenda, and we're speaking to it, the Minister of Water Affairs has a master plan for water issues in the country. It's a 900 billion rand master plan. Now, we've got a state that is, if you like, systemically engulfed in corruption. And we are saying, and we said this to Parliament yesterday, water is going to be very important in the context of climate change. We are going to have major water problems with multi-year droughts, etc. So we're not managing our existing resources. And so the planning that government is started to do and cost out, we need this planning to kick in, and it must impact communities. Right now, water competencies from national, provincial, and local, particularly local, is in a disastrous situation. Most of our local governments are not rising to the challenge of meeting people's needs and rights around water. So we said also yesterday to Parliament that this has to be part of the solution, and we have to move in this direction. But the other is the deeper structural change of our energy system. Because we're so coal dependent and locked in, we really have to, if you like, break out of that. And this is where socially owned and community-owned renewable energy becomes absolutely important. And this President's reconstruction plan, again, doesn't lean in this direction. The Integrated Resource Plan 2019 basically still locks us into a coal-dependent energy trajectory and path. And so we are saying, let's review that. Given the climate science, given the larger impacts of our coal-based mining energy complex, let's review all of that and think about structural transformation, systemic transformation.
Doc, then there is the other subject matter which still is an albatross around the country right now, and it is that of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. It's without doubt exposed the inequalities in our society. You are calling for the democratization of the disaster management approach to COVID-19. In simple words, what do you mean by that, and what is it that you want done?
So there is a crisis on the ground. We are transitioning towards mass starvation in our country. Government's response around food parcels has been wholly inadequate. Its approach to top-up grants has been, again, inadequate. Right now, a basic basket of goods for an average working-class family is 3,900 rands. The minimum wage in South Africa is 3,600. So there's a massive squeeze there, okay? So government has come short. At the same time, we've studied the Disaster Management Act, and the Disaster Management Act in South Africa actually provides for civil society to participate at a national, provincial, and local level in the context of disasters. Now, government has chosen not to do that. On the ground, communities have stepped up to fill the gap where government hasn't been present. And a lot of those relief efforts are coming short right now. They're under-resourced, they're under immense pressure, there's solidarity fatigue, etc. And of course, it's going to take a long time for this economy to turn around. And we know there's massive unemployment that has come with COVID-19. So the crisis is deep and it's worsening. So we are saying, open up that space. Let's co-own this problem. Let's have a coordinated national response so that everybody can step up and address this crisis. So that's where we are coming from on this.
When you talk about a coordinated national response, what does that mean in practical terms, Doc?
So if you look at the Disaster Management Act, as I said, it provides for a cross-section of civil society to work with government around a disaster kind of situation, which we are in, okay? Now, again, government has done a very top-down, if you like, a driven approach to the situation. It's used its existing policy tools, which have come short, and there's a big gap on the ground, okay? So people are in a very, very desperate situation. What we are also saying is that plug in to where people are getting it right and are doing it. So there's already energies on the ground, and these things can come together with collective will from all of us, the state and progressive civil society, and we can ensure that we address the food crisis slightly differently. Let me also add on this. We've been saying that let's use this moment to open up pathways for food sovereignty to take root in villages, communities, towns, and cities, and so on. So there are mass energies right now. Let's harness that.
All right. Dr. Vishwas Satgar, and he is from the Climate Justice Campaign, talking to us about their demands that ought to be added to the country's economic recovery plan.